Um, as usual, you've got me, Kim Barnettson. I'm the childminding partner for the Stronger Practice Hub. We've also got Lisa and Damon from the Stronger Practice Hub, who are going to be on hand to help out and chip in with ideas and anything that we need to know. It's really helpful if you can be interactive in this session. You can put stuff in the chat, you can pop your hand up, you can just interrupt, and that's absolutely fine. I have left a little bit of time at the end for any questions, so we can cover that. I just want to say a quick thank you to Katie and to Lorna, who shared some of their ideas and information with me, and that input was really helpful. I've taken a slightly different approach to thinking about maths tonight than I think you might have expected. So let's have a look. Hopefully it's working. Come on. Oh, I'm so sorry. Bear with me, everyone. Hang on. Why is that not working? I'm really sorry. Bear with me, everyone, while I get this silly thing working. Hang on a second. I think I know what I've done wrong. I need to start that first, and then I need to go and share it. Right. Oh no, I'm so sorry, everybody. Bear with me. It's just all going wrong. Right, back into Zoom, back up there, sharing. Just, keep yourselves occupied for a minute while I'm getting this sorted out. This should be it. Right. I'm really sorry. What's going on? Okay, let's see if this is working now. Yes, hooray. So I think we're all really familiar with Development Matters, EYFS, Birth to Five, all these other maths things we may have done in the past. And what I really want to do tonight is show you that maths is embedded in everything that we're doing with the children all the time. So after taking loads and loads of notes from everywhere I could think of, and thinking there's so much, I'm never going to fit this into an hour. What I've done instead is looked at the early years evidence store, which is where we get all our information from, because we really want to show you stuff that's excuse me, that's proven to make a difference to the children in your setting. So I've taken the 5 approaches that the early years evidence store tell us are proven to make a difference, positive difference to the children's outcomes in maths learning. But the main thing is they need to be embedded in everything we do. If you've come to any of my other sessions, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the sort of holistic play, holistic learning, and that we're embedding communication and maths and physical. It's all wrapped up in one big learning experience. We're not taking the children aside to do a maths activity or a communication activity. That's not proven to make a positive difference. But if maths is wound up in excuse me, in part of their everyday life in your setting, that's when it makes a really, really big positive difference. So tonight we're going to look at those 5 approaches, and then we're going to look at what these mean in a practical way, just a few ideas, a few photos to show what that might look like in a childminding setting. We can have a brief look at some of the terminology, which I don't know about everyone else, but I was unfamiliar with until quite recently. Ideas for effective resources. I've just taken some pictures of things around my setting, just to give you an idea of the sort of stuff I have and something that you might be able to sort of replicate in your own way, or you might already have these things in your setting. You will need your phone because we've got some of our favourite Slido quizzes to do to keep you all on your toes. So let's get started looking at the approaches. Oh, first we've got this nice little quote from Grenier and Volens. I've used this before. Grenier is one of the authors of the revised EYFS. He wrote a really good book, or both of them did, about using the curriculum in practice, and it's such an easy book to use. I'll remember to send a link out to everyone, or send it to Damon, because it's really, really helpful. And as it says here, research shows that maths development is more effective when embedded into everyday experiences, not separated out, because young children don't learn subjects separately, as you do when you're older, when you're at school. So these are the 5 approaches. If you're familiar with the early years evidence store and you've looked at this already, you'll see I've changed the order of them just to make it make sense for this webinar, but they're still the same. Number and quantity, teaching problem-solving skills, comparisons and connections, using mathematical language, and mathematical fluency. Now, here is the key sentence for everybody. You are already doing all of these things. I guarantee. I mean, I know so many of you already personally. I know your practice and how you talk to the children and what things you do. I know you're doing all of these things, but it's just learning how to recognize that what you're doing is supporting their mathematical development. So that, for instance, as Damon was saying earlier, if an Ofsted inspector came in and said, "What's this child doing here?" you could explain all the areas of development that child's activity is meeting and why they don't need to be taken to one side to do maths activity, accounting activity, or a shape activity. It's just not necessary. So you are already doing all of these things. First one is number and quantity. It's quite a leap for children to understand the difference between a numeral or even counting and a quantity. But we can really make that work with very simple everyday things that we do. So in this case, this child's got his birthday, he's 4, he's got 4 candles that he's put on the cake himself. And of course, on his birthday cards or whatever, it's got a number 4 on there as well. Those things help children to make those connections. And as you can see here, it says, keep things real and in context. Young children don't have the cognitive ability to grasp abstract concepts in the same way that we do. It has to be real. It has to make sense to them. It has to be something that is meaningful to them. So a really good one is obviously birthdays, because that's something that's really important to children. But even things like the number on their house, the number of the bus they catch to school or to your house, or anything like that. These things have meaning and are in context to those children. A really good one. When I was doing this, I was thinking, you might go to the shop with the children. This is where childminders have a little bit of an advantage over bigger settings where they don't go out so much. Imagine you've gone to the shop with your children and you need some bananas, and you've written on your list 3 bananas. You pick up 3 bananas. You've got to check there are 3 there. And then when you get to the till, especially if you're doing the self-checkout, you have to enter the number again, don't you? You're just counting how many bananas, how many have we got? Oh, we've got 3 bananas. Let's enter the number 3. That's in context. It's meaningful. It's what we would call concrete, because you're actually holding those bananas in your hand. So you can see 3 means this many. It just makes sense. Teaching problem-solving skills is something we do, any early years providers are doing on a daily basis, but it's just recognizing it as a maths thing. So sequencing, so breaking down tasks into manageable steps. That doesn't necessarily mean breaking down maths problems. It can mean breaking down things like, let's put your socks on, and then we're going to put your shoes on, and can you do the Velcro? You're doing these 3 steps. It's helping children to break big tasks down into smaller tasks, which teaches them problem-solving skills. So scaffolding, we've spoken about this before, haven't we? So just working alongside the children to facilitate solutions. but working with them, not taking over and saying, I know the answer, but sort of gently supporting them. And also, in a similar vein, modeling. So working alongside, but wondering out loud about things. I wonder what would happen if I did this. I wonder why this doesn't fit in. I wonder how many I can squeeze into this box or whatever it is. All of these things help children to sort of think about problem solving in small, simple steps and stages. Comparisons and connections. I've also included pattern in this because it doesn't mention pattern particularly or specifically in the evidence store. So you'll see some of these things overlap. The next one is about mathematical language as well, but modeling language and being specific about modeling language. So things are larger than, they're smaller than, they're taller, they're longer. Using mathematical language that children can store and reuse themselves later on. We all know about this, don't we? Measuring, filling on a small scale, that might be tipping beads into pots, or if you use food in play, it might be lentils or rice or something like that. And on a large scale as well, what about things like mud into a bucket, sand, water, something big, something heavy? That all goes with the modeling the language as well. So you want big and small scale of that type of mathematical play. And pattern recognition and replication is so important for all types of learning, but particularly for maths, because the human brain is wired to recognize patterns, and it's how children make sense of their world. And all of us, actually. It's from things like the rhythm of the day. If anyone's familiar with Steiner, Waldorf Steiner's type of schools, they have a rhythm of the day, a rhythm of the week, a rhythm of the season, you know, the year. And we do that as well, don't we? We recognize different types of seasons, but you also might have a day when you always go to the library and another day we always go to toddler group. And if you're a very young child that doesn't know the days of the week or the time of the day, having a routine and a rhythm is a pattern that you can use to predict what's going to happen next. And that's the same for all patterns in life, really. That's how we use patterns to predict. This happened then, the same thing will happen next. So it's also things like actually making a pattern. It can be that you're making a long line with loose parts. You're doing a bobbin and then a stick, and then you're repeating it over and over again. You're modeling that, and the children might do the same. And they eventually like to make their own patterns, don't they? Arrange loose parts, particularly into patterns. But it's also patterns and sort of sequencing and the idea that things repeat. So stories, songs, replicating things so that children learn how a pattern works. And that's how they sort of grasp what's happening to them, what's happening around them, and predict what can happen next. So again, very similar. Using mathematical language is so important. And not just things like big, small, but be specific. Also, things like position. It's on top of, it's behind, it's underneath. And times as well. So rather than it's lunchtime, it's a good idea to say the time of the day. You can have clocks and that type of thing. As you'll see later on, if you're going to have a maths-rich environment, having lots of numbers and things around are really important. So we see in this picture here that this child's cutting up some strawberries. So we might say, we're cutting it in half, we're cutting it in quarters. The child doesn't know what half and a quarter is. She's only very little, but it's all knowledge that they will store and be able to come back to later on. So as I said there, being specific. And then we've got mathematical fluency. For me, this means bringing that all together into a maths-rich environment where children are able to use all of those different approaches we've just spoken about to solve mathematical problems. And it doesn't mean solving 4 plus 2 take away 1. It means, how do you fit these things into this box? It means, how much water do I need to fill up that hole? Which color bead do I need next when I'm making a bracelet, when you're doing a pattern or something like that? It means, how many eggs do I need when I'm cooking? So it's using a bit of everything in this sort of mathematically rich environment, but the terminology for that is mathematical fluency. So what does this look like in practical terms? These are just pictures from my setting. I don't mean you have to replicate these things, it's just to give you an idea that all of these things are maths. This is a geo board. I don't know if anyone else has got them. They're just fantastic. Very, very calming, especially if you have a child that sort of needs to have a calm time, struggling a little bit with self-regulation, because they're just, you can do them for hours. You're just stretching elastic bands and making patterns with them. This one is just lines, but some children come up with some amazing things, obviously really good for fine motor skills as well. So that's a specific resource. But also, here we've got some elephants that I got from a charity shop and a box that someone gave me. And this is actually an elephant hospital where the elephants are lined up waiting to be treated for whatever dreadful injuries elephants have. But not all of the elephants fit in the box. And some of the boxes, some of the little compartments, 2 elephants can fit in. All of that is maths. Have the next one. This little one is sorting out some loose parts into a little tray. That's maths too. What fits in where, looking at things at the same, putting all the rings together or all of the little wooden people together. Sorting and arranging is maths. And even a child using their own body is maths in this way. Squeezing into a box. Sometimes you get a big box, don't you? And all the children want to squeeze into it. And it just looks crazy. They're all stuffed into these boxes, but that is fun, obviously, but it's also maths. It's learning about your body in a shape and in space, and how you fit into different things. I've got some more pictures here. So maths is everywhere, as Julian Grenier says. The first one is children doing sleeping bunnies. So we all know all of these nursery rhymes. They are all maths, even ones that don't include numbers, because they've got a pattern. They've got they repeat themselves. So children know, don't they, when the sleeping bunnies are going to wake up, and they know when they've got to be the dingle dangle scarecrow, or when you're singing the zoom zoom zoom, they know when you've counted back from 5 to 0 that they're going to blast off. It's that repetition of doing the same songs over and over and over again. It's all maths, it's patterns, it's recognition, it's repeating itself. Some songs obviously do have numbers in as well, which is doubly good. And one of the things that was pointed out in the early years evidence store is the importance of counting up, but also counting backwards. So counting down, as in the zoom, zoom, zoom song. But you could also do that with other things that you're doing. You know, sometimes if we're waiting to cross the road and we press the button, we might count from 10 down to 0 to see if we can get there before the green man turns up. Anything like that is always helpful. Obviously, this isn't a bus in Colchester, but I didn't have a picture of a local bus. But yes, bus numbers, numbers in the environment. Sorry, not buses in the environment. Numbers are everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And because we want numbers to be in context for children, recognizing numbers, that's the bus we always catch. It's the number, whatever it is. And then walking around your local community and seeing numbers on doors, or seeing the times on the post box, or if you've got a clock that you walk past, or anything at all. In the same way that we want a communication text-rich environment, we also need to have a maths-rich environment. And because we're out and about all the time, we have all those things, don't we? We go to the shop, we go to the library, we're doing all these things where we're using numbers anyway. You know, we're going into a cafe and we say, oh, we want 2 sausage rolls, please, you know. So all of that communication and maths is all sort of tied up together in our everyday activities. This little one is doing storytelling with a storytelling bag that I've made. The really good thing about this type of storytelling is that it follows a particular narrative, a particular track, and the child can adapt it for themselves. But because they're using this storytelling line, they're repeating a sort of a pattern of a story. So that the story starts in one place and it has a middle, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Again, it's another pattern thing. And then we've got someone's house number there just to show that, you know, we all know our house number, don't we? I have in the past asked parents to send in pictures of their house numbers or their doors or the front of their house or something like that. Sometimes we sort of stick them on things to make little pretend houses so that the cars can, toy cars can drive to each other's houses and that type of thing. But you can use them for all types of activities or just for pictures to look at, can't you? So they can recognise their number, their birthday, their all these types of numbers that are important to them in their life. So now we need you to get your phones out, please, because we're going to move on to terminology. And one of the words, if you've got young children at primary school, you will know this number already. But I have this word already, sorry. I have to say I didn't know until probably about 6 months ago. If you've got your phone and can do the QR scanning thing, please do. And see, oh, look, everyone. And pop in there what you think. What does sabotizing mean? This is a word that might come up, you know, if an Ofsted inspector came round, they might want to ask about this. Generally towards the end of the EYFS, it would be getting towards the foundation year, but some children in the sort of few terms before then are able to do this, especially when you're out and about doing things. I can't tell if everyone's voted or not, Damon, can you?
No.
Oh, some people still are. I couldn't tell if it was like everyone's finished.
There's a little number at the top, Kim, of people. So 18 people of 19 people.
Oh, yeah, 19.
Well spotted, well spotted. Right.
Can I
I'll give
just
it a
say,
couple of minutes then.
I didn't think any of those was sabotizing. I thought
Oh, okay.
sabotizing is when they automatically recognised a number of objects without counting them.
Well, I'm going to wait for everyone to finish
Oh,
voting.
sorry.
Yes, Lorna. I think, oh, it's still, people are still voting. Yeah, thanks, Lorna. I must say thank you for all your information you sent me. I went through all of it and took loads and loads of notes, and then I realised there was no way I'm going to fit that into an hour. So, do we think have we got anyone else? I think we've probably got to the end of this sort of 24 seems to have sort of stalled there. Lorna, you're right. Maybe it's the way I've worded it. It's knowing, yes. So, for instance, a good example maybe might be that there are 3 apples on a plate, and a child can just look at that and say 3. But children don't always get that right. But it's just being able to have a go at sort of estimating or identifying a total number in a small group. Wouldn't expect them to know it with, I don't know, 20 objects, would you? But 4 strawberries, 3 strawberries, 3 bananas, that type of thing, 5 cars, that sort of thing. I think, is it because I put the word estimating, Lorna?
Yeah, yeah, that's what threw me because when they can do it, it's them being able to recognise. I mean, maybe at this age up to 5 items, but starting with
I
starting
think
with small numbers.
I totally agree, and I'm really sorry if that's misleading. I think why I'd put estimating in is because we're really talking about children who aren't in that final foundation year yet, aren't we? Really, we're talking up
Yeah.
to 4-year-olds, and that's quite a leap for most 3 and 4-year-olds, for instance, or younger than that, they wouldn't be able to do it anyway. So I don't know. If a child said to me, there's 4 strawberries on the plate, and actually there were 3, I'd think that was a good attempt at sabotaging, you know? So that's why I'd put estimating. But you're quite right. Sabotaging does mean that you can just glance at something and see how many of them there are. So thank you everyone for that. Let's move on to a couple of other things about terminology.
Kim, just before you move on, sorry, I was going to add that at
Yeah.
the Southend conference,
Mm.
we had some input by a maths expert, and she suggested the value of dice, looking at dice for that, for to really develop sabotaging skills. Because obviously, you know,
Right.
because the way the numbers are laid, the dots are laid out on the dice, that really does develop that skill of being able to instantly recognize a number. So that's just
Oh,
another thing that you know, obviously, I guess dice will come up at some point, but it's a really good a good thing about having dice in the setting.
yeah, that's a really good idea, actually, isn't it? Yeah, I've got some large die in the setting, but um, yeah, I can see how that would be useful.
I've also used what they call 5 and 10 frames.
Hmm.
Anyone heard that? So they know that when it's full, it's 5.
Hmm.
I mean, this is moving on a bit further, I think, well,
Hmm.
maybe when they're slightly older. But some of the children have found that really useful for sabotaging using a frame.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Lorna. Yeah. Um, I think there are lots of different resources you can buy and have, aren't there? Um, and I'm trying. Yeah, I totally get what you mean, and I think that's a really good idea. I'm trying to see maybe the the maths value in everyday activities and resources that we might already have. And having said that, this is not a very good picture then to follow that on from, because Katie and I were talking about these things, manipulatives, real objects that can be handled. And Katie and I are both curiosity approach settings, and usually we wouldn't have manufactured resources like this. Um, but we were saying, we could be looking for years in charity shops to find all these different shaped objects, couldn't we? So you don't have to have these. And I totally agree with you about the number frames. They're a great idea, depending on your setting and what you can afford and what you've already got, maybe. You can still cover all of these things. So manipulatives does mean you're holding real objects that represent a shape, because as we said at the beginning, children can't grasp a sort of a abstract concept in the same way that we can. So if I was to describe to you a triangular pyramid, you'd probably have a pretty good idea what I was talking about. But a very young child um, might not be able to, well, probably wouldn't be able to. But being able to actually physically hold and manipulate an object helps them to embed that shape or understanding of that shape in their mind. But again, you don't have to have these things. This is just an illustration of something you could have to support that type of development. But a lot of just everyday resources do the same thing. So cardinal number is something that comes up quite often in maths, and that's the last number in a counting sequence. So in this case, it would be 3. There are 3 elves. I think we all know that anyway, but I just thought it might be helpful to point out those that little bit of terminology that sort of has come in the last few years, and we might not all have been familiar with. And then the last one is mathematical fluency. I'd just like to point out this amazing pattern that a 3-year-old did in my setting with some Lego. And I didn't even realise they didn't say anything about it until I went to clear away the Lego at the end of the day and found it. But mathematical fluency, as we said a little bit at the beginning, being aware of numbers, shapes, patterns, and being able to attempt mathematical problems using a range of approaches. So really that means bringing that all together into into the ability to recognize maths and to be able to approach mathematical problems, doing all the things that we've talked about, so you're supporting the children in all these different ways. So I've got a summary here. I know I've whizzed through this quite quickly, sorry. If you are singing songs, reading stories, modeling mathematical language, scaffolding problem solving, providing a maths-rich environment, and embedding maths into your everyday activities, then you are already using all of these approaches. So that means you are already supporting children's mathematical development in a really positive way. I've put a few pictures on the end here just to show some things, again, a few resources, and in a minute I'm going to ask you to add in resources that you might like. So Lorna, this will be a good opportunity for you to add in the thing about the number frames. Obviously some books have numbers in them, how to count to 1 or 5 little pumpkins, but they don't have to. It doesn't have to be a number book or a book about numbers for it to be a mathematically developing book, you know. So let's have a look. Seasons, that is repeating the pattern of the season, and as we said before, recognizing a pattern is a really important part of mathematical development. This is just in my setting. I have quite a few clocks around that children can handle and manipulate. Here we go again with that manipulative thing. They can open it, they can turn the hands round, they can look at the numbers. I always try and get them with numbers, not just, you know, some clocks don't have actual numbers on, or they might have Roman numerals. I have got 1 or 2 like that, but in general we have maths, we have numbers. Shark in the Park is a really good example of a book that has a repeated pattern and a predictable pattern to it that children can join in with. And we've all got books like that, haven't we? And things like Bear Hunt is a good one. Or The Hungry Caterpillar. Obviously it has got numbers, but it's also got a pattern, a repeated pattern of the story. Oh, look, some dice. So yeah, big dice like that are really they're just really nice to handle, aren't they? And Damon's right, that makes the numbers very easily recognizable for young children. I've got a few more here coming up. This one I put in because I think, like most of us, I don't have enough money or space for a big microscope. But this was to point out that you don't have to just do these things in your setting. Take advantage of other places that you've got nearby. This is our local natural history museum, where children can put things under the microscope, or we put our hands under, or all sorts of stuff, and it comes up on the screen and the children can adjust it. If you've got anything like that nearby, go and take advantage of it, you know. These are nesting dolls. I've got quite a few different ones. These ones are owls. They're really good for sorting, lining things up according to size, trying to fit the 2 pieces together to make sure you've got the right ones, trying to stack them together. It just goes on and on. It's a really handy resource. It's also really cheap. You can pick those up at charity shops a lot. Anything with numbers on here. So calculators, phones, old dial phones, old remote controls, anything with numbers on helps you to give this sort of maths-rich environment where you've got tape measures and measuring things, and things with numbers on, and things where you can write down numbers, or calendars, or anything at all that with numbers on in your setting is supporting this maths-rich environment and making numbers part of every day for children. This is a resource that I've actually bought, but I think they're actually for wedding tables, or if you're having a party and you put the number on the table. But the children love them as a loose part. They get used as candy candles on birthday cakes, or are given out as tickets for, you've got to go and see a show, here's your ticket. All sorts of things, house numbers, or they just all sorts of things that their children use them for. So they make a good loose part. They were incredibly cheap, but they're also a really good maths resource. Similar thing here. Look, these are from tables things as well for weddings, but they're just on a log slice, so it's slightly different, but does the same sort of thing. And the children really like them, and were very, very cheap. Because I'm really aware that childminders, we just don't have an awful lot of money to spend on fancy resources, and they're not. It's not necessary. And here we've got scales, measuring things, measuring cups, anything like that. Again, supports mathematical development, and also that mathematical fluency. So these things are all around us all the time. How can I work this out? Oh, I know, I can get those measuring cups. So you're supporting this problem solving for children. Now I've got another Slido here thing for you here, and this is just where you can add in your favorite math resources. They don't have to be something that's been bought as a manufactured resource. It can be something like the nesting dolls, or a book, or an activity that you do. So anything that anyone wants to add in there, that would be really, really helpful. Because we all learn, I think we all learn from other practitioners and get ideas and sort of, oh, yes, well done, thank you. Hands and fingers, yeah, perfect. And actually, visual timetable, yeah, that's a good idea. I've done a bit of research on visual timetables, and they are a really, really good idea. I think one of the things that often people use sort of cartoon type pictures, and it's been shown that using actual photos is much more effective for children. That's also a very good way of doing now and next, isn't it? Visual timetables. Oh, number pebbles. Couldn't say that. Oh my goodness, so many things coming up. Yeah, pattern. Hang on, I'm trying to work out what this actually says. Number pebbles in a tough tray. I'm not sure why it says can, and then weighing book. Okay, an abacus. Yeah, that's a good idea. Lots of places have an abacus still, don't they? Weighted somethings. Weight is a really good idea, actually, because if you're having scales, as someone's put there, that's a good idea. But also talking about weight and using weight when we're doing mathematical language. So things are heavy, they're really heavy. This one's really light. Would you like to hold the light one or the heavy one? I mean, pumpkins are a great idea, aren't they? Because we've had lots of pumpkins lately, haven't we? So pumpkins are really heavy, or they're small, or that's a really good one to talk about. Someone's put bears. Do you mean though counting bears? Oh, thank you. Use real items in photos. Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to say that because sometimes people use clip art, and because children can't always identify with these sort of abstract concepts, it's much easier for them to identify with a real picture, as I'm sure you know. Elastic band scales you can make yourself. Oh, do you mean something where you've just got something hanging off, a bit like sometimes people have a coat hanger, don't they, out in the garden, and they've got buckets hanging on them?
Well, what it actually is.
Yeah.
So I'd seen this on a training I was doing. So it's they'd actually used, the Tetra cartons you get for juice,
right?
Because they're quite strong. Cut it in half.
Yeah.
Punch 4 holes, one in each corner.
Yeah.
Thread a string from the corner to the center, and then attach an elastic band. You can hang it on a door handle.
Right.
And as you put more in, it gets lower and lower.
Oh.
They can see that it's going up and down, which is very good visually for them to see. So often scales have got a dial, or they're a balance scale.
Yeah.
So it's just a different type of scale. And it's very good for the young children because they love to fill it with as much as they can and try and get it to the floor.
What a great idea, Lorna. Thank you for that.
It's
I
okay.
must say I hadn't thought of that, and I think that's a really good idea, isn't it? Yeah, I
I
can see
hope that description makes sense.
it does. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, really good idea. Yeah, and I can see how that's yeah, you're right. It's a different type of weight, isn't it? I've got one of those scales in the garden that you use for hanging luggage on, you know, where it pulls down and the spring gets longer and longer as you're hanging things on it. But there's all different types of scales, so I think that's a really good idea. Sorry, I'm just trying to read some of these. Outdoor building bricks, yes, very, very good. Anything like that really is very good for mathematical development. Matching, yeah, matching anything really. That can be absolutely anything, can't it? Get all the odd gloves out and match them up, or asking children to find if you use cutlery that's coloured, you know, which colour do you want? Get those ones that match together. Sorry, some of these words have just sort of have come up as sort of like random words. I'm just trying to work out what we mean. I'm not quite sure what we mean by chickens. Is it sorting chickens? Or is it chicken slices that's next to it? But whatever it is, yeah, anything like that is great. Dice again, leaves. Hang on a second. I'm just trying to see if I can make sense of some of the different words going up on there. Water in different size jugs, yeah. Water's any type of using water play like that, where you've got filling and emptying containers it's just really, really beneficial in all sorts of ways. Where are we? So I'm not sure. So who's put? Could someone explain what they've put by use ordering slices drilled chickens at the bottom there? I'm really interested to know what the chickens are. Yeah, parachute, that's great. You can use that for that type of thing for for all sorts of things actually, can't you? You could use parachute for height, higher, lower, in the middle. You can use it for matching colors. You can use it for working out a pattern, all sorts of things. Where are we? Weighing, repetitive. Yeah, so repetitive is like patterns. You need to keep going with anything that sort of where things are making a pattern and repeating themselves, like in a story or a song or in your routine during the day. That's all really, really helpful for children to help them make sense of their sort of the world around them. Because actually, when you think about it, as for a very young child, the world must be a bit of a random place, mustn't it? And if you've got an idea that we always have breakfast, and then after we've had breakfast, we always go to school, that helps them to sort of have some consistency, but also to start understanding that pattern, that predictability. This happens, and then the next thing happens. Rainbow balls sounds interesting. I'd really love it if someone could pop on and tell me what that means, but it sounds brilliant. Weighing, sizes, repeating. So anything, these are all really good ways of just talking generally about mathematical language, aren't they? What I'm hoping with all of this is that you'll be able to see that all those activities that the children in your setting are doing all the time. So let's say role play, they're going to the shops, or they're taking their dollies to school, or whatever it is they're doing. There is mathematical language used in that, probably, isn't there? They'll have phoning people up, or they're saying, I'm going to the shops, I'm going to buy 2 cakes, or whatever it is. When you're out and about, you're seeing numbers in the environment. When you're reading stories, sometimes the stories have numbers in. In fact, even stories that haven't got numbers in do quite often follow a pattern of threes, like the 3 billy goats gruff, or Goldilocks and the 3 bears. There is lots of research behind why that's an important repeating pattern, but even something like that is really helpful for children. So all these things that you're doing all the time, you can look at them from a slightly different angle and see the maths development in there, and the maths learning in that type of play. Do you know, I just want to give you a quick example of someone I spoke to last year who had a little boy who she was concerned that all he wanted to do was put toy cars, into the lift of his toy garage. And she said every day he comes in and he tries to cram these into the lift. And I said to her, have you thought about looking at this a different way? And that he's setting himself a maths problem. How can I fit that many things into that space? And if I use different cars, can I fit 4 cars in rather than 3? Or if I turn them around, will they fit in there? How many can I fit in? When does it get too heavy? As Lorna was saying about the scales, when does it get too heavy for me to turn the handle and make the lift go up? So I think it's important for us to see the maths in the activities that the children are doing, rather than us saying, let's do a maths activity, because we know, and the evidence has shown us, that that just isn't as effective as embedding maths into your everyday activities. And as I said at the beginning, you are already doing all of those things. Did anyone want to come on and explain any of the other things that I wasn't sure about, like slices and drilled? Where are we? Chickens. I'm guessing pom means pom-poms. But if anyone wants to come on and explain, if not, I'll skip forward to the next bit, which I think might be the last bit. Let's have a look. Oh, okay, that is my last page. So I've put on a few links there, one to the Padlet where there's a few other links as well. The picture on the side here is 2 of my little ones using the spirit level last week to sort of, I would say, help my husband build something in the garden. I've also put some links to Enrich, which is about having a maths rich environment, and Help for Early Years Providers, which I know I keep promoting each time. I have some really good, helpful little videos for each area of development. And actually, the Early Years Evidence Store also has some little videos with ideas like when you're reading a story, how you support maths through that, and when you're singing songs, how that's supporting maths. So if you're not sure, have a look, because it's all about you having that knowledge about what the children are doing, how it's meeting all these different areas of learning, and in particular in this area, in this instance, talking about maths. So you can see that the children are learning maths, even though it's not a maths activity, because we really want to move away from that and embrace having these sort of embedded learning opportunities. Does anyone have any questions or comments? And I can we can have a chat about them. It's really helpful if anyone's got anything they want to ask.
You were talking about these references. Have you heard of NCETM? I'm not sure what it actually stands for, but it's all
NC what? Sorry,
NCETM. It's all to do. It was recommended to me for maths, so I haven't actually had a chance to have a look through it. But that's another. Oh, here we go. What's this say? I'm just having
celebrating
a look
10 years of Maths Hubs programs. I've got here. This is
National Centre for Excellence in Teaching of Maths. So I'll put that in the chat if anyone's interested.
Yeah, thank you.
I haven't had a chance to actually look at the website myself, but I was told that it was a good one.
Oh, thank you. It does look good, actually. I hadn't heard of it, so thank you, Lorna. I'll put a link to that in the Padlet as well, under the maths section, so it's easy to find. Yeah, that's really helpful. Does anyone else have any questions or comments, or has anything not made sense? Or I thought I'd come at it from a slightly different angle using these 5 approaches, because every childminder I know already knows the basics, or I would say the majority of us know the basics. So I think having this sort of evidence that shows what we're doing is already really positive, and what maths looks like in a childminding setting. I'm hoping that's helpful and sort of just gives you the confidence to know that you're doing the right thing already.
Sorry, Kim, I missed a bit of the chat. There was some people did put a few things in the chat.
Oh, thanks.
Barbara says she has an abacus which she uses every day,
Oh, lovely.
and Jackie put she recommends a book called "Don't Count Your Chickens," all about a girl who wants chickens but wants twice as many.
Oh, okay, brilliant.
Sounds good, that one. Number boards. Emma's suggested number boards with number and holes to use pom-poms to match the quantity in the numeral and other loose parts.
Oh, okay. Well, this sounds very
It
similar to the thing that you're talking about earlier, Damon,
sounds
doesn't it?
it sounds very similar to the free gift that we're going to be posting out to everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
If you fill in
Yeah.
the feedback form, so fill in the feedback form. I have put the link in the chat. And then Natalie's put different size sticks and sorting those into size order.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, all brilliant ideas. I would say don't try to move away from that idea that we need let it happen naturally. Do you know what I mean? Don't sort of try and force it into a let's do that into a maths activity. Let it just happen. I'm sure you all are, but let it happen naturally. Thing like patterns, I think in the EYFS or development matters it says, can a child do an AB pattern? Well, that doesn't mean you have to take them to one side and say, can you do a pattern like this? It can mean that you're playing the cars and you're lining up the cars red, blue. Or it can mean that you're out in the woods and you find some feathers and some sticks and you just make a feather and a stick pattern together and see if the child can continue that pattern on. But yeah, I totally agree with it. All of you are such brilliant practitioners already. You all know what you're doing. But yeah, I think the evidence shows that it's less effective when we try and make it into a maths learning experience, and more effective when it's just part of everyday life. So the more you can just embed it into your everyday life about we're going to set the table now, we need 2 spoons and we need 3 forks. Or we're going to take these sticks out, but this one's too tall to fit in the whatever we're putting it in. And so we need a shorter stick. Or we're going to make a den and we need 5 pegs or whatever it is. Embed it into a sort of a more natural way of learning rather than sort of taking it aside and splitting it up from other type of learning. I think all of us, not all of us, a lot of people haven't had maybe a good maths experience at school, and perhaps that is because it's been separated out from everything else that we learn. And actually it is, as Grenia says, it's just everything. It's all around us all the time. But thank you so much, everyone, as always, for all of your fantastic input. And Lorna, you were quite right about the sabotizing, and I'm sorry if I've confused anyone about that. But I was sort of thinking of we working with such young children that sabotizing is something that, when you're looking at the EYFS and development matters, comes in on the foundation year, really. But I've got some children who are not in the foundation year yet and are just starting to do that. So that's probably I wasn't very clear on that, and I apologize if that's confused anyone.
When I said 10 frames, I didn't mean something that I buy.
Yeah.
I use a 10 frame, so we might chalk it out on the patio.
Yeah.
Or just draw something, so you don't necessarily have to buy. I don't know what a 10 frame would look like if you bought it, actually. But it's actually a 5 because they're young, just 5.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can we use it in play to count things, and they might make a mark in one box and then a mark in the next box, or put a stone in, and they can easily count that way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Lorna. Yes, and also, yeah, you're right. You don't have to. In fact, it's probably better if you don't have to buy all these different manufactured things, isn't it? You know,
Exactly.
we've all
Yeah.
got enough resources probably to be going on with. Yeah, and you're quite right. And also, that's a really good way of doing mark making, early mark making as well, isn't it? Even things like if you're out and you're chalking things, doing things like hopscotch on the floor. It doesn't matter if the children can't actually do the hopscotch, but it's just giving them that idea that those numbers are there and they're there for a reason. And you're quite right, Lorna. You can use that frame as a way of counting and sorting out objects so that you know how many you've got in each category or whatever you're doing with them. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anything else? I think we have
You're
one.
just you're getting lots of thank yous and people saying how
Oh,
useful
thank you.
it's
Sorry,
been.
I can't see the chat.
Um, and I think I missed one. Oh, Karen just said highlighting all about left and right and hands, left hand, right hand, and matching your mittens and your shoes and your socks and everything, which
Yeah,
again is a bit of maths, isn't it? So
yeah. It's all maths, actually. It's all maths, isn't it? Yes, sorry, I can't see the I couldn't see the chat when I was sharing. Um, yeah, I think that's yes, you're quite right. All of those things, everything is maths. Anything that's matching, pairing things up, finding things that are the same, finding things that look different. So comparisons and contrast and comparison. Um, yeah. Uh,
someone has said, Louise has said, Kim, where are your manipulative wooden steps from, please?
Okay, so that wasn't just a stock picture that I used. I think Katie might have given me that picture actually. Um, but you can get them from Amazon. I can give I can put the link on the Padlet or I can share it out with Damon. I have actually got a set because I got some after Katie told me about them. Had this discussion about we could be looking for years trying to find pyramid shaped things in the charity shops. I got them, and actually, we've had some quite good fun with them. Um, one of the children last week put them in a cauldron and pretended to use them to make a magic potion. And then this was her idea, it was completely child led. We had to close our eyes and put our hands in and find a shape, but we weren't allowed to open our eyes until we could tell her what the shape was. She's one of my grandchildren. She's very, very strict like that. She's going to be a strict teacher one day. But that was really good actually because we were going, well, it's pointy at one end and it's got three edges or whatever, and that was really a really interesting way of doing it. And to be honest with you, it was a long time since I've been at school. I didn't know what some of those shapes were called until we got these things. Where is it? This is one ellipsoid, I think this one is, and the different types of pyramids. Obviously cylinders and things I knew, but it's very interesting. I will put the link in. Oh, thank you, Emma. That's really kind of you. Thank you, everybody. And I really appreciate you coming along and spending your evening talking about maths. Our next session is going to be a community of practice session, I think, Lisa, isn't it, on clay? So if you've had a clay session at one of your networking sessions and you've got any pictures or information or advice or ideas you want to share with us about clay, how you use clay in your setting, what you've done with it, what the children enjoy doing with it, any hints or tips, get those ready for the next session on the 19th, and we'll have a big old chat about clay in the.
I'll put the link on, Kim, for that session. I'll put the link to sign up to that session.
Oh yes,
So
obviously. Thank you, and thank you for that, Lorna. I will put that on the that link to the NCETM. I'll put that onto the Padlet. There we go. And I hope you enjoy your free gift. It sounds fantastic.
yeah, make sure you fill in the feedback form. Get your amazing free gift,
Yeah,
handmade in natural
homemade,
wood.
amazing free gift.
It is amazing. It's incredible. So make
Yeah.
sure you sign up.
Oh, everyone's so kind, aren't you? Look at all these lovely, nice comments. Yeah. Oh, Kate has said that she can't access the feedback link.
Yeah,
Damien, I've just
I
replied.
replied to her, but if in case she's still listening, I just said if you reply to the email that I sent this link on for the meeting. If you just that'll come to me, and then I'll send it to you, Kate. I'll know it's you.
Oh yeah, she said fab, so she's got that. That's all right then. Good.
I think that's it then, is it?
One.
So thank you, Kim.
That's okay. You're very welcome. I'm annoyed with
Great
myself.
job.
Thank you. I'm annoyed with myself for putting estimating on the subitizing thing. I wrote it several times. That's what I ended up writing, and I just Lorna was completely right. Shouldn't really have put estimating because it's not estimating. It's like seeing.
I think if you're like you're saying, Kim, we're looking at it from children from as young as a young age. They're not going to be subitizing, but they're going to be emerging into that. So it almost is a form of estimating. So I could see where I knew exactly what you meant by
yeah.
And as I say, you can be strict and say, right, subitizing is this, but as babies begin to put one finger up, that's emerging into that subitizing. And we could, or if they can recognise that that's one finger, and and I think it is. I think when you're estimating, like you say, you put 4 strawberries on a plate and they tell you it's 3. Yeah, they haven't got it right, but they're beginning to use those skills. It's almost you have to estimate before you can get to sabotage to get to the.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
No, I knew what you meant with it, but as I say, you can either be completely straight down the line, can't you? Or you can look at, well, yeah, okay, let's look at how that works in a setting of 0 to 4-year-olds.